I looked at the calendar this morning. I said, it's February. Guess that means I should go ahead and wrap up January. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another monthly wrap-up, this time for January of 2024. 1/12 of the year is in the books. We're going to kind of talk about all those fun things and maybe not so fun things that did happen this month, guys. But that begins, like always, with talking about what am I reading, or what did I read, rather, in January. Sorry, it's used to the weekly update. With this one, 4 1/3 novels. Now, obviously, that's very confusing to some people. 1/3, I say, because I read part 1 and 2 of Shogun by James Clavell. That's going to be something I am breaking up from January, February, and March, coinciding with the new series coming out on FX. And since it is such a chunk of a book, and there was several other things I wanted to start reading this year, so I'm going to go ahead and break that out over 3 months. Did parts 1 and 2, had a really good time with it, but I've talked a bunch about that recently. Then it was closing down the realm of the Oldlings finally by talking about Assassin's Fate with Robin Hobb. That was quite a journey, and might not have liked the last trilogy as much as some others, but I definitely didn't dislike it. Had some things I liked about it, some things I didn't like about it. I did do a quick little rapid review of it on the channel in case you missed it. But now that I've let it sit for a couple of weeks, I'm pretty satisfied with how the series did conclude, and there's nothing but recommendations for me when it comes to Realm of the Eldlings. Voice of War by Zach Argyle. That is the first book in the Threatlight series, and that's one I had a really good time with it. What I really enjoyed was there was so many things about the investiture, so many things about the different points of view, and this different terrains you kind of were visiting. You kind of had like your ground level, you had your up in the sky level, and then you had just lots of interesting new things going around with like I said, the whole magic abilities and how they do play into everything. But I really like the idea of our lead character struggling with something that happened in the past. That's something I never get tired of, and maybe like your darker side struggling to get out, and that's always something I'm going to be interested in. But interested to continue with that, and I did like that was just 300 pages. That's a nice little snack when you are an epic fantasy reader. All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy, which is about the same length as Voice of War, but if you've read Cormac McCarthy, it's a little bit of a challenge to read some of his books, but I did really enjoy All the Pretty Horses, and it was something that I said I felt like it was almost a spinoff of Lonesome Dove. If Newt had not gone on the trail ride with everybody else, and he had just decided to go south and kind of find himself in Mexico, that's why I kind of feel like this would have been that story. But I liked it quite a bit. Didn't quite like it as much as The Road, but I liked it way more than Blood Meridian. This was something I felt like I was looking for with Blood Meridian, because he really is just kind of describing that way of life in the southern U.S. during that time period. And obviously, anytime you got some coming of age in there, I'm going to be very interested in it. And I feel like he does a good job with that. And I like that enough that I will continue with the Border trilogy sometime later this year. And if you've been following the weekly updates at all, guys, you know I did not like The Toll by Neil Shusterman. It was just a complete disaster from beginning to end. It completely ruined everything that I really enjoyed about books number 1 and 2. But again, like I always say, that's one of those things. I don't want people to take my word as gospel on that. If there are plenty who said they do like it. Go on Goodreads. It's got a really good rating. So it might just be a me problem. I don't know. I just really liked where book 1 went. Book 2 was like okay. And then book 3 completely off the rails. Did not work for me. So a pretty good reading month otherwise. That one was kind of a big letdown. And everything else I really did enjoy. But there can only be one when it comes to my book of the month. Now, I struggle with this because I feel like there's several that are actually worthy here. Everything except The Toll, I feel like, was actually up for consideration. But I decided I've got to go ahead and do something because I can't just wait until March to decide that Shogun is going to be my book of the month. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick Shogun now because I can already tell this is going to be a book of the year candidate. I am not going to count this as eligible for January, February, and March. I'm going to pick it now for January, and then just going to count as my book of the month for January, even though I'm confident that the rest of it's going to stick the landing. Like I said, guys, I have already seen the miniseries, so I know the story and the way that James Clavell is telling it here. I'm not worried that it's not going to live up to it. I actually like this so much more than the miniseries because the miniseries really just focuses on Blackthorn, whereas this focuses on both sides of it, and you're actually getting to know things about some of those Japanese characters that I was really, really curious about while watching the miniseries, being like, why is that character? Why is Yabu like this? Why is Omi like that? What is Lord Toranaga thinking right here? What is Mariko doing? This, it actually kind of gives you all that side of it, and I feel like I'm getting the director's cut. You know, that's how it feels reading this. But this book is every bit as incredible as its legacy. I feel like it really does Stranger in a Strange Land very, very well. I love a good fish out of water story, learning about other cultures that are completely foreign to our own. That's something that's always going to be a theme that will land with me in a book like this. I'm still relatively new on historical fiction, so I'm saying this is going to be up there. It's going to be an all-timer for me, I think. I really am loving just how much I'm learning about not just the time period and not just the culture, but a lot of the other surrounding territories' history. Like there's a lot of stuff with the Spanish and the Portuguese in here that I had no idea about, and it's been very, very interesting to kind of learn that as I go. And I never feel like it's a history lesson. I'm not getting like an info dump or anything like that, but the way that the characters kind of put it into their dialogue, it actually makes a lot of sense. And there's so many characters in this. I'm very, very interested in learning to know more about. And where I'm at right now, like I said, I do know the main plot of the book, so I'm not going to have any major surprises there, but I do still feel like there have been several things that have surprised me the way that Clavell has explained it here. And it's hook and mouth, man. I just want to keep going, no doubt. So I said I did want to break this into 3 months. But, if I didn't have this channel, this probably would have been something I read straight through because I was enjoying it greatly. I cannot wait to get back to part 3 here relatively soon. So, like I said, I feel like breaking this over 3 months, it was going to be really hard for me to say, well, I'll wait until February or March to decide to call this my book of the month. Let's just get it out of the way. I'll call it my book of the month for January because this was the most fun I had reading anything in January because it's just that good. And I had a great, great reading month, and this one just kind of really stood above the rest, and I'm really, really excited to continue with it. So I'll just go ahead and say book of the month for January 2024. This is going to be Shogun by James Clavell. Plenty of time to catch up with me if you guys are still considering doing it. And if you can find this edition, I say go ahead and grab it now because it is becoming quite scarce and it is becoming quite expensive if you are looking for it on a a market, or what do you want to call it, a bidding market. If you want to kind of look for it like on eBay or something, it's become quite pricey, much more pricey than I did pay for it. But let's go ahead and move along, guys, to channel growth for January. About as slow as December, which is normal for this time of year. First quarter is always kind of dreadfully slow. Don't know if it's people just kind of getting back into things, getting back to work and things like that, or if the YouTube overlords just kind of flip a switch in January. Things just always kind of take a nosedive. But like I said, this is pretty similar to December. But going back to historical data, this is my 5th year where I'm looking at the stats at the beginning of the year, and it's the same as always. And go back and look at those same trends. It's just always like that in January. 1,681 new subscribers. That's actually up 291 from December, so that's cool. 411,000 views. That one is also up 27,000 from December. So those are 2 green arrows. 2 out of the 3 is always pretty good. 62,000 hours watched is actually down 2,000 from December. So very, very similar to December. And just one of those things where you just kind of hope for better things here going forward. I know that everybody's busy during the holidays, and a lot of the wrap-up kind of preview content might not be for everybody, but that is kind of what that time of year dictates. So I'm always looking for things to kind of switch things up and see what works and what doesn't. And we'll just kind of continue to look at that as the years do roll by here on the channel. Let's go ahead and take a peek at my most popular content for the month of January. I did 13 full-length videos, some 6, little shorter videos, and then 2 actual YouTube shorts. So a little less. Like I said, I have went down to just 2 videos per week and the weekly update. So basically 3 videos per week, trying to put out some, supplementary content, I guess you call it, with some of these shorter videos and shorts, just so you don't feel like you're getting ripped off if you were looking for those 4 videos a week that I was putting out for a long time. Let's go ahead and look at some of those most popular ones here. Top 10 sci-fi books of all time as of this recording. That's at 30. 6,000 views. This video I wanted to do because so many people have been asking me, hey, you made your best fantasy series, you've done your top horror novels, why don't you do your top science fiction series? And I said, well, I haven't actually read enough series, but I've read enough novels. But I also kind of did put the little asterisk at the beginning of that and said, look, guys, I haven't read nearly as much sci-fi as you have. It's one of those things, I lean mostly fantasy on this channel, so I really am not as battle tested as some of you are. So your favorites probably weren't going to be on that list, but still it was a pretty good reception. There were some people that really just said, hey, what about this book that's dystopian, this book that's post-apocalyptic? And I went ahead and made a different video for that one, which we'll talk about in a second, because I didn't include them in that one. But it was a fun video for me to make, and yeah, I stand by my picks. I'm very, very happy with them. Ongoing series, To Break Your TBR, that's 14,000 views as of this recording. With that one is I did back I don't know, 2 months ago, I did, completed series To Break Your TBR for, where people that always say they want to wait till a series is complete. I'm like, well, these are done. If you haven't read them yet, I think you should go ahead and do it. So my favorite ones, my favorite completed series, and I thought the good counterpart to that was like, well, these series here, they may be ongoing, but I feel like they're either just S tier, or the author writes really fast, or the author's, in the actual throes of writing the final book right now. So those are some of my favorite ongoing series. And it's one of those things where I understand that people don't want to wait. They want to just kind of binge read some of these series. But some of these series, I feel like the books are dense enough, you'll feel like you maybe want a break after some of them. So I don't know if you want to read them back to back to back to back to back. And some people can do that, some can't. But those were kind of like my favorite ongoing series. And I'd recommend right now, like if you're in a slump or something like that and you're wanting just a banger, any of those series would really fit that bill. Top dystopian and post-apocalyptic books. I don't know why I struggle with that word so much. 10,000 views as of this recording, and it was, I just put that out a couple of days ago, so that's pretty cool. Had a big error recording that. My battery on my camera died, so I had to record from my iPhone, and that just makes the whole thing seem like a wall of red because I just had no idea what I was doing. And it actually kind of worked out because it was, the topic, post-apocalyptic and dystopian. I feel like that's just so different. With my sci-fi, I like to keep it spaceships and lasers, pew-pew. With post-apocalyptic and dystopian, I feel like that's usually just something that can be a little more grounded and not quite depending on, going to outer space and stuff. So I don't want to kind of blur the lines between those two. That's why I made them two separate videos. And it seems to be pretty well received. I mean, there are some, like I said, when you start dealing with a lot of classics, it's going to be a lot of, okay, that book, it did not age well. And I'm like, well, I mean, when you're talking about just the genre, I don't like to take away, a book that was written 100 years ago and they had much different beliefs than we do now. I don't like to discount that for any reason. That's why, I have like 4 or 5 books in there that are, 70 plus years old, because I think they've just kind of stood the test of time and they've kind of defined what that genre means to me. And yeah, I had a good time with it. December 2023 book haul, that also had 10,000 views. I always appreciate getting to say thank you for things that you wonderful, wonderful folks have sent me and get to shine a light on maybe some self-pub and things like that. Library Policeman, Stephen King is from 4 Past Midnight. Is where I just kind of resumed Into the Multiverse. And I went back to the 4 Past Midnight ones that I never finished, which was Library Policeman, and I'll be doing The Sundog here soon. That has 6,000 views, and people seem to be very excited about me returning to the multiverse. And that makes me very excited because, I didn't mean to take as long of a break from it as I have. I took a break from rereads because I just felt like they were taking up too much of my time. There's still so much new stuff that I want to read. But with this, I said, there are several things I can just break my pattern, my schedule I'd been doing with that, with doing them all in publication order. Go back to some of these ones I didn't. Maybe talk about some of those Richard Bachman books or stuff like that until I get back onto my rereads, which I'll be resuming here relatively soon when I get back to Dreamcatcher and finishing my Dark Tower reread. But Library Policeman, a very, very underrated story. I actually had to take out the intro for that one because it did get a copyright strike. Apparently, the gentleman whose music I was using, it still says copyright free, but I guess he sold it since then, and so I just had to remove that. So my apologies if there's a lot of muted sounds in that video. I had to remove them or they were going to take the video completely down, so I had to mute them out. So happens sometimes, content creator problems. Favorites that didn't really make the list, I gotta say, talking about the Arabasta saga of One Piece. Manga is big time hit or miss on my channel. People either absolutely love it or it's crickets, And I know that most people are here for me to talk about fantasy novels, so I get that. It's one of those things where know your audience. I I am having a great time with One Piece, so I wanted to talk about them. But it's also kind of a spoilery video, so if you haven't read them, who's going to want to listen to it? So it's one of those things. It is what it is. I am enjoying talking about it. I'm enjoying really going through One Piece, and I'm kind of on that break right now, so I kind of wanted to get that video out while I took this break before Philip gets caught up, and then Philip and I and Murphy and now Alan can get together and talk about One Piece here. And more on details on that here soon. We're still kind of working that out. But Philip has begun One Piece, I do think. But that's everything, guys, that I did read this month. And my most popular videos this month. Everything that I read this month. Again, I'm getting these two confused with the weekly updates. How about some channel goals for February before I go here? It's kind of continue picking up some of these new series. As of this recording, I have picked up a couple of new ones. I did pick up War for the Rose Throne, which I really liked, by Peter McLean, and I've actually started Larry Correa's Saga of the Forgotten Warrior, and that's really good so far. So it's looking like a good year for some new series, because I did enjoy Threadlight as well. So that's all you really can ask for. You continue some of these, or start some of these new series, and you're really liking where it's going, because I do have that new rule this year where I'm only going to commit to book one, and then I'll decide if I want to keep going. So I didn't even say about the Border trilogy. I'm going to continue with that one as well. So everything's looking roses so far with some of the series that I've picked, and I was going to be sure I continue to do that. Finish part 3 of Shogun before the premiere of the Shogun new adaptation coming out in FX. That's February the 27th. And yes, I know I'll only be 2/3 through the book, but also that's going to be a weekly release show, so I'm not worried about that. So by the time I finish the book, the show will be headed up towards its end, because it is just a limited miniseries of 10 episodes. So just going to kind of stay ahead of the show the whole time as I'm reading. That's kind of the way I'm doing it. And I want to just kind of get back to do some more collaborations. I haven't done a Talk About Nothing in a bit. Haven't done Saturday Night Nights in a while. I do got something that's kind of in the oven right now with Christopher Rocchio, Ryan Cahill, and Shauna Lawless. We're going to get together and talk about, the impact that novellas can have on authors. And I will represent the readers, how much I like or dislike novellas, and kind of where I think they feel. But we'll also probably do some Talk About Nothing in there as well. I don't imagine we're just going to talk about novellas for an hour. But we'll see. With those 3 wonderful authors, I'm sure there will be lots of things that do come up. So I'll make sure I get back into doing that again, get back to doing some crossovers and things, because I do enjoy talking to other creators. It really is a lot of fun for me. But guys, that was the month of January. I'd love to know what your book of the month was. Why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments and let me know. Let me know, what was your favorite video that I made this month. I would love to hear. So hit me in the comments, guys, and I will talk to you there.